Hello, hello. What a good day to talk about Jesus. Welcome back to Hot Girls Pray, a Christian podcast where we're going to talk about all things Jesus, culture, and just your walk with the Lord. My name is Kumara Rapp, and I'm so excited to be filming this second episode. I got so much love on the first one, and it makes me so happy that people were very supportive and just loved hearing my testimony. In the next few episodes, I want to share 5 principles that have honestly changed my life. And I learned these 5 principles at a camp that I went to over the summer. And that camp was called the Ultimate Training Camp. And at this camp, it's a very high intensity training camp where college athletes learn how to find their purpose through the integration of faith, life, and sport. I talked a little bit about UTC in the last episode and the impact that it had on my life. So I just want to share a little bit about the time that I had when I was there. We learned 5 principles on how to worship God through your sport. And I really understood what people meant when they said audience of one. You don't play your sport for yourself, for your teammates, or to win, but more so to glorify God. So the next day, we had 20 hours of nonstop physical and spiritual work. And this was symbolizing Jesus' final hours. And of course, what we went through was super hard, but it was nowhere near what Jesus went through. I was exhausted. I was cramping. I was literally wondering, why am I here? But my teammates were so great and they just kept reminding me, like, this is not your strength, but this is God's. Like, He is going to get you through this. So the next day, my team had to wake up at 4:30 in the morning. Mind you, we went to bed around like 2. And I think I got like an hour and a half of sleep. But we had to do an obstacle course, and I woke up in so much pain, but I got through the obstacle course, and after that, we had to run a mile with a 2x4 like on our shoulders, symbolizing the cross. Even though this camp was for athletes specifically, I think I learned so much that I can apply to any area of my life because it taught me to invite God into every aspect and thank Him for the talents that He has given me. So, the first principle that we learned was called Audience of One. And the question was, who or what do you worship? So, today I want to talk a little bit about that and then go into idols. I think in today's society, we can idolize so many things and we don't even know it. This can be social media, success, money, your boyfriend or girlfriend, like a number of things that are idolized and take our focus away from Jesus. But no matter how much we achieve or how many likes on Instagram we get, we often still feel empty. And the Bible tells us that when we make something more important than God, we will always feel unfulfilled. Okay, so I want to introduce you to the 5 principles and a little bit of what that is about. So each of the 5 principles take a story from the Bible and apply that to sport and competition. And this will cover topics like idolatry, motivation, identity, growth, and perspective. And these principles just don't apply to sport. So since I'm talking about this, like I don't mean you can only take this in if you're an athlete, but you can apply this to literally any area of your life, whether that's school, relationships, your job, your sport, literally anything. No matter what you do, you live your life in front of an audience, and this can be your friends, your family, social media. It can be fans in the stands. And wait, that kind of rhymed. Fans in the stands. But like if you are an athlete, it can be the fans. And we try so hard to please these audiences. But a good thing is instead of trying to please them, we are already pleasing someone else, and that is God. He has made us and He has seen everything that we have already done. He knows what we are going to do, and He is truly our audience of one. And when I say God as our audience of one, I don't mean like we are doing things to please Him and to impress Him, as if His acceptance is based off how good or bad we do something. Like He's not disappointed if we do something wrong, because you don't have to perform or compete in order to get someone to love you. If you are fully surrendering your life to Jesus Christ, then He is already satisfied with you. He loves us unconditionally because of what He has already done on our behalf through His life, death, and resurrection. Okay, so I want to go back a little bit of like, what is an idol? So an idol is anything that begins to function as a substitute for God in our life. And then what is worship? Worship is giving ultimate worth or value to something or someone. So while I'm like talking about all this may be like convicting, I guess, but just like try to think of like, what do you use as an idol in your life and what do you worship? My ring light just died, so if it got so much darker, I am so sorry. But I want to go back a little bit and talk about like things that compete for my attention in my time. Like in my life, it's my schoolwork, cheerleading, work or money, my future, and I think even relationships. And I want to talk about like when you idolize a boyfriend or a girlfriend, it is so dangerous for you and for the other person, because there's not one single person on earth that can fill the place of God. And the reason for this is because we are all just human beings, and the place for God is built for someone perfect, and we cannot fill a space that is built for someone perfect. So when you are idolizing someone else, they will always let you down, and that person that is being idolized will never feel like they can do enough to make the other person happy. And it just won't work out. So don't do that. Don't put your boyfriend or girlfriend on a pedestal. I want to tell a little story in the Bible, because this isn't just about like what Kimora thinks. Like this is literally what God thinks. So I'm going to tell you guys about 1 Kings chapter 18. And a little bit of backstory is that Israel is like in a drought, and King Ahab promotes the worship of Baal. And Baal is like an agriculture god. They say he's like the rain god or the fertility god, but yeah, he was just this made up character. So King Ahab is the king of Israel, and he like over and over he completely disregards what God says. So starting 1 Kings chapter 18, it says, "The word of the Lord came to Elijah in the 3rd year. Go and present yourself to Ahab. I will send rain on the surface of the land." So Elijah goes up to Ahab, and Ahab sees Elijah. And Ahab says, "Is that you, the one ruining Israel?" And Elijah says, "I have not ruined Israel, but you and your father's family have, because you have abandoned the Lord's commands and followed the Baals." So Elijah tells Ahab, like, bring all 450 prophets that are worshiping Baal and bring them to me so I can speak to them. So Elijah approached all the people and said, "How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him, but if Baal, follow him." But the people didn't answer him a word. So I think like right here you can tell their problem is divided worship. They are desperate. They are impatient, can no longer wait for the rain. They're not waiting for God. And so then they are wavering between these two options, Baal and God. And Elijah is just like, if you think the Lord is God, then follow him. But if you think it's Baal, then follow him. But you can't do both. Okay, so pretty much Elijah says, get 2 bulls, and you guys get a bull, I get a bull, and he says, I will prepare the other bull and place it on the wood, but not light the fire. Then you call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of the Lord. the God who answers with fire, he is God. So, starting in verse 26, so they took the bull that he gave them, prepared it, and called on the name of Baal from morning until noon, saying, Baal, answer us. But there was no sound, no one answered. So there was no sparks from Baal. It was not working. And Elijah started mocking them, saying, like, you should shout louder, like maybe he's sleeping. But there was still no sound. No one answered, like no one was paying attention. So Elijah tells all the people, come to me and watch this, pretty much. So he arranged the wood, cut up the bull, and placed it on the wood. He said, fill 4 water pots with water and pour it on the offering. Then he said a second time, and they did it a second time. Then he said a third time, they did it a third time. So at this point, he's just showing off, like pour a whole bunch of water. So the water is like all around the altar and it's like drenched with water. And he's about to ask God, like, light this on fire, and it's like flooding with water. So Elijah approached the altar and said, Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, today let it be known that you are God in Israel, and I am your servant, and that at your word I have done all these things. Answer me, Lord, answer me, so that these people will know you, the Lord our God, and that you have turned their hearts back. Then the Lord's fire fell and consumed the burnt offering, the wood, the stones, and the dust, and it licked up the water that was in the trench. When all the people saw it, they fell face down and said, the Lord, he is God, the Lord, he is God. First of all, who's the one who answered? Like, obviously, it was God. And I think, like, in this, God isn't trying to show off. Like, I know Elijah was definitely like, yeah, fill it up with water and then God's going to light it on fire, like, kind of like a show off. But the point of this was for people to turn their hearts back and realize, like, why am I worshiping this thing when God is the only one that can do this? It says in Matthew 6:24, no one can serve 2 masters. Either you will love one and hate the other, or despise one and worship the other. I think it says something very similar to that. Don't quote me, but it's like you can't worship 2 people because you will be so devoted to one and just not the other. Like you have to pick one. Just as Elijah said, like at the beginning of the story, like how long are you going to waver between these 2 options? Like if the Lord is God, then follow him. But I want to illustrate something. Imagine it's like Thanksgiving Day and you have that plate that's like it's sectioned off so your food doesn't touch. And like over here in this little corner, you have a side dish, and that's your school. And then over here, you have your family. Over here, you have your job. And up here, you have God. So you just have a plate, all these things, and you are worshiping many gods. They're all on the same level as God. Tim Keller says this thing, and he says, the greatest danger is not that we become atheists, but that we ask God to coexist with idols in our heart. So instead of just outright denying your faith, you're trying to live with a divided heart, serving both God and these other priorities. And the other priorities will always let you down because idols are so deceptive. They do not deliver what they promise. They are powerless, they are deadly, and they will always let you down no matter what. Even if it feels good for a little bit, like in the end, you are not getting what you asked for or what you need. So I think to move forward from that, once you accept and recognize that, then you have to fully surrender and repent. Repent meaning you have to turn away from the idols and turn towards Jesus. And then after that, Jesus will change everything for you. Jesus says in the Bible in John 10:10, the thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. I come that they may have life and have it abundantly. So the thief, the idols, these things that you are worshiping, they will steal, kill, and destroy. But you know what Jesus does? He gives you life and gives it abundantly. Like why would you not pick this side, you know? And I think one reason why we were created is to have a relationship with God because he is the only one who can satisfy our need for acceptance and meaning. Because in the world, it says, if you perform well, then you will be accepted. But God says, you are already accepted and you are already loved. We're going to do another plate illustration. So imagine another plate, and over here you have your little side. It's your sport, and you have school over here, your friends, and your job over here. Okay? But the plate is God. So what is the difference between this first plate and this second plate? The first plate, God was added to all these other things. He was on the same level as everything else. And this is someone who worships many gods, who says that they're walking with Christ, but they're worshiping so many other worldly things. In this second plate, God is the whole plate, and everything else is an addition on top. Because I'm not saying that like you can't have all of these things. You can't have a job and a sport and like friends, whatever. But like they are on top. They are blessings that are added later on, not something that is like you shouldn't be idolizing your sport so much that it's on the same level as God, because then you are wavering between two options. So to deal with this, it's just recognizing and acknowledging that we might have something in our heart and in our minds that are functioning as a substitute for God. So I think in my life, like I can really idolize school and my sport. The way that I idolize my sport is something that hopefully a lot of people can agree with, is like happy when your opponent competes poorly, because that means like you have a greater chance of winning, because my only concern is winning. But how can I take that as an opportunity of worship? And that's just wanting the best for my team and for my opponent, and just respecting my opponent instead of like wishing the worst for them. And idolizing school, a lot of the times I base my worth off of my academic success. And how can I change that? Just see my education as a blessing, no matter like if I get a bad grade on my organic chemistry exam. Like I'm still loved, I'm still accepted, and my worth didn't change at all. So I think just like the point of this was just like try to shift your focus from these worldly idols and back on God. Evaluate where you're spending your time and energy. Are you investing more in your relationship with God or chasing the next thing that makes you feel good? The more that we know Him, the more that our hearts will desire to put Him on top of everything else. I think finding a community is so, so important because they can hold you accountable. So, finding that faith based community that encourages you to stay focused on God and not get distracted by these worldly desires, because we can't do this all by ourselves. Like, pray that God will remove these idols from your life. Pray that He lets you see them and acknowledge them first, and then get this community of people on earth that can help you recognize and help you just like get rid of them and just walk with you during this, because it's really hard to hold yourself accountable all the time. And I think lastly, just finding that true contentment from God and knowing and trusting Him rather than pursuing these external achievements. When we center our lives on God, everything else will fall into place. We will no longer feel the pressure to seek this validation from the world. Success, relationships, achievements will no longer be our idol, but they will be seen as blessings and opportunities to glorify God. And like, in no way was I saying in any of this, like, you can't have success, you can't have money, you can't have friends, you can't, like, no way am I saying like you can't have fun, but like, just like take those moments to glorify God. Like when I think of this, I think of, imagine you are a football player and you score a touchdown and you are so happy and you like put your hands in the air and you're like celebrating instead of like doing the Millie Rock when you get a touchdown. Like go on your knees, like thank God, like put your hands like this, like do this, like point to the, I don't know, do something that glorifies God. Like everyone's looking at you when you score a touchdown. Like use that moment to glorify God instead of like glorifying yourself and like doing the like most trending dance that's out right now, you know? So, yeah, I think this is like really good to talk about, to like just recognize that everyone has idols, everyone messes up, everyone has these things that sometimes they can put above God, but just like come back to knowing that God is above all else. And I challenge you all to try to recognize and acknowledge what in your life are you using as a substitute for God. And the first step of that is praying and asking, like, Lord, can you reveal these idols to me? Can you take them away? Like, just do that first. And any moment where you're glorifying yourself or anything else, use that to glorify God, and it'll all be okay. But yeah, I think that's it. Um, this was so fun to talk about. I think the next episode, I'm interviewing someone. So that's going to be so fun. I can't wait for you guys to hear from them because everyone loves them. I'm not telling you if it's a boy or girl, but everyone loves them and you guys are gonna love it. I know this was like super, I could feel super convicting, and sometimes we need that, but like this is still a very safe place. I struggle all the time with these things. Like when I'm talking about this, like it's stuff that I think about, that I go through, and that I want to share with everyone else because I struggle all the time. Like in no way am I perfect, but we're all just like doing our best here, and let's all do our best together. But yeah, I have an Instagram and a TikTok at Hot Girls Pray Podcast, and you guys should follow it. I really hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you just have a great week. I hope you have a great month actually, because next week is Halloween, and I love Halloween because I love candy. So I hope everyone gets to eat their favorite candy, and yeah, thank God for the candy that you eat. Thank you for listening. Bye.